next item is old business, and for those who may not have been at the previous meeting, we have established really an informal procedure that when we have issues of considerable public interest, we try to present them at one meeting, get public exposure for them, hear from people. We have a case here where we've had some modification of what was originally presented, further feedback. So it gives people an opportunity for input and evaluation. So we did hear both the subjects under old business at the last meeting on the 17th. The first one that we're going to revisit is a application for municipal improvement status for the Holly Hill Transfer Station. And with us today we have a full complement of employees from the town's Department of Public Works, as well as our outside professional consulting firm, and certainly like to welcome all of you and provide you the floor to present your proposal. And that's Camp Dresser and McKee is the firm that is working with the town, and that's Cindy Bauman and our chief engineer, Jim Michael. I do want to also, while we're having it set up, thank the Department of Public Works for responding to various letters of concern that were presented to us with a very explicit, response letter. I think that was very well done and certainly essential, given some of the information presented clearly was not factual, and whether it was intended to mislead, it certainly needed to be corrected. So I want to thank you for that.
I'm going to introduce Cindy Bauman with CDM. She has been the consultant working on our Holly Hill Master Plan, as we presented a couple weeks ago. The project is a master plan. We're seeking municipal improvement for kind of redesigning the site to make it more efficient and more useful for the Department of Public Works. So,
thank you. I just wanted to come before you. You've got our responses to both of the letters. I think we've addressed those comments adequately, but if you have any questions on those, I don't know if you want me to go through them or just... Maybe
you can just pick the more salient ones that, are of maybe more public interest, or ones that, receive more public attention, and therefore by showing what the correction was, it clears the record publicly.
I guess there's like three kind of, maybe I'll do them, there's three kind of groups of questions that were submitted. One was respect to the information that was submitted. We did submit what was required by the inland wetlands. They had said there were some deficiencies, but the planning and zoning actually requires more information when submitted, and all of that information was submitted in that submittal. And so I think it was just maybe a misunderstanding of what was required for inland wetlands as opposed to what we submitted now for P&Z. So all the information that is required was submitted. Another general kind of comment was about with respect to the permits on the site, and the site, they're all in compliance with their MS4 permits, their operation permits, and in addition to the permits, there were questions relative to impacts from this facility to the environment, and there was quite a bit of documentation submitted with respect to water quality samples, both upstream and downstream and at the facility. And if you look at that information, there's nothing that calls out that this facility is polluting the water or providing any additional contaminants. A lot of the samples that were provided actually show higher concentrations upstream than downstream. So I don't know that there's really, the site is a transfer station, so there are environmental concerns with that, but I think the staff there does a pretty good job with containing the materials, not having a lot of stuff flying around, any discharges, all the things are covered. So I don't know that we've provided a lot more information than is required as part of the P&Z in response to those comments. So I think we've addressed the comments in both letters.
And again, just for public edification, the municipal improvement process is required under Town Charter, Section 100, 99-100. And the Board of Selectmen has traditionally, just in my time, listened to the proposal and voted on the overall concept so that it does get before the other regulatory agencies that look at the more detailed aspects. So in terms of what you provided us, I think it's extremely detailed. We're getting the information that ultimately will be in the hands of the other agencies, which we can then say to the public, we've not only done our due diligence, we've gone a little bit beyond. But we know that Holly Hill is a critical facility for the town and one that has evolved over time, and certainly we've seen remarkable improvements in the last several years with the limited resources that have been available, but it is time to implement the master plan, and so...
And I think one other thing that I didn't mention that I think is very important, and kind of being an outsider here, is the DPW actually was very proactive last year. They installed some stormwater BMPs that they could have waited and included in this project, but they included them prior to that just to, improve the water quality before, this project. We know this is going to be a long-term project, and they wanted to get those, installed prior to that. So there's already been a water quality improvement done this past summer. And then I think just this whole separation and cleaning up the property is just such a benefit to what it is currently. So, I don't know, I think that's a good positive thing to say.
Does anyone have questions? David?
No, I'm pleased to hear that, I think it's Tom's Brook it's called?
Correct.
It is not going to be polluted to the extent that we thought it might. And further upstream contaminants you mentioned, where would they be coming from?
It's in your normal stormwater runoff. I mean, they could be coming from parks, because you can see, I think one of them was E. coli, so that can be from walking your dogs, it can be from, you don't have a lot of septic systems, but it could be a failed septic system, at least in this area, you don't have a lot of septic systems, mostly sewer.
We have with us our Commissioner of Public Works, Amy Siebert, and Amy Siebert was the superintendent of the wastewater treatment facility, and certainly can speak to any issues that...
I just want to bolster what Cindy's saying. I mean, people forget that there's runoff from their own lawns, there are pollutants from pets, there are pollutants from, when we do sweep our streets, do we sweep them every week? We can't get out there every week, but there are a myriad of things that come from every individual, as well as the town. Everyone tends to look at the town and presume we are the only ones that put anything bad in the water. So we all could probably do a better job if we looked at our own properties.
I mean, can I just ask, with what appears to be, there's going to be a fight for capital money this year, does this have to be done now? And the second part of that is... We're trying to do this in phases,
and the answer to that is, unfortunately, yes, we do need to really keep going and get started with this. There are several drivers here. As you folks know, we have to move the highway division out of South Water Street. We need to do that for two reasons. Number one, there's construction that is pending that turns out to be larger, occupying a larger footprint than expected at our South Water pump station. So that will push highway out of that location for construction, independent of this project. So highway needs a home.
Can you just point out, though, that's for sewer system improvement,
That's for sewer system improvement, which is again a benefit environmentally.
Right.
It's something we need to do. We've been long pursuing it, and finally, when we got our final design together, it has a pretty big footprint down there that we're going to be addressing. Also, highway, operations were to be removed from that location as a result of the Byram Master Plan. So there's a goal to take back areas along the Byram River, the areas that are possible, and try to turn them into something a little more, park-oriented or public access to the river type-oriented facilities. So we've got those things going on. So we need a place for...
They have to move some, regardless of this
We have
project.
to have a place for highway to go. And we also really have strong goals of trying to separate residential from commercial operations at Holly Hill. John will tell you, John is telling me every day that it can be pretty chaotic down there. For a lot of folks that use Holly Hill, they know it's a very busy site. We all consider ourselves very lucky that we haven't had any accidents or injuries with everything that's going on down there with big trucks while people are driving their little cars, into certain piles to drop off materials. So we're very concerned about getting this separated. So we think we've put together a reasonable approach that's spread out over several years to let us get this started. This thing started before I got here. Let's see, John, 1993. Is when he started, and there was work to try to figure out how to get the site set up for improved operations and for safety and so on and so forth. And again, I keep trying to emphasize highway. We forget that in emergencies, a lot of times we tend to think of fire and police and GEMS, but we forget that the highway division is out there in the hurricanes, in the snowstorms, in the windstorms, in the floods. They're out there 24/7, just like Parks and Rec staff are out there as well. And these folks are out there responding as emergency responders, and they need some place to operate out of. They can't just operate out of a truck. So that's one of our big goals for this site. I know I saw some questions that I guess came up at the prior meeting about, why are you putting highway, why are you putting them there? Well, they need some place to go. They have to have some place to operate out of, and they won't all fit out of Indian Field. They serve as a great resource for the west side of town, of course, operating out of this site. So for all those reasons, we really are looking to try to move this forward. We are working on how we're going to keep operations going while we're trying to construct. We're trying to encourage everyone that can to, it's almost like a business support thing. Hire a hauler, so you don't have to come to Holly Hill while we're doing this work. That's going to make it a challenge. We're trying to figure out what we can do with our own forces for moving materials around, or if we're building walls, what could we do ourselves even to try to help manage costs on this. But I think it's very important. It's been pushed to the curb so many years. I think
Can you just talk about phase one quickly, the first phase of the project, what that's going to be, entail?
I'll let you guys talk the best about the detailed phasing.
Right.
Do you want me to explain it?
Go ahead, Cindy.
Yeah.
Phase one is going to be the residential area so that we can separate, because the first thing we want to do is just separate the residential and the commercial, because they both come in this way and they go out that way. And so we're going to separate it so the commercial will come in and out, the existing entrance, and the residential will come in and out that. And so the first phase is this phase over here, which is the residential area. There's like a pre-phase that's actually the sewer and the stormwater basin, then the residential area.
And I think it's important to point out that issue of separating the access and egress of the commercial and residential also is one that we've heard repeatedly from the Chickahominy Neighborhood Association about improving the traffic flow and removing backups, which they feel disproportionately impact their neighborhood. So, when we think about this, it's an MI for improvement of this facility, but the corresponding actions improve the quality of life in really two neighborhoods down in Byram, and it improves the sanitary sewer. It improves it here as well. So it's much more than just the master plan in Holly Hill, and I think that's important for people to understand. Do you have anything, Dave?
No, thank you for the update.
Thank you.
So in terms of the next, if we approve today, you'll be before the wetlands and then before the planning and zoning.
Yeah, we've been before the wetlands already. We're scheduled to be back on their agenda again for approval at the December 12th, I believe, meeting.
Okay.
And then planning and zoning is scheduled for January.
And how did the wetlands, that went well?
Yeah, they're fairly supportive of it. They just wanted to see a few. They'd gotten the same questions you guys got on the same day, and it was a couple days later, and they just wanted us to clarify some of that information. And so we put together that information.
Okay, thank you very much.